Let's do it. If that's what you want, let's do it. It's an honour to have Dr. Bear on today. He's become a good friend. We stay in touch, and I'm excited for everybody to hear his story today. We'll be back in 21 seconds with Dr. Bear Lawrence. Welcome to Leading Our Own Way. I'm your host, Andrew White, and this is the podcast that unveils captivating narratives of resilience and personal triumph. This podcast is for anyone seeking inspiration and insights on overcoming life's challenges. Follow and subscribe, and then we can lead together forever. Dr. Bear Lawrence, how are you today, mate?
I like to say positive things, like I'm feeling all right, but because of the message that we want to convey today, I'm actually in a bit of discomfort and pain, but that's fine. That's fine. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Well, Dr. Bear, I'm amazing, and I'm just so grateful that you're appearing on this podcast because you are on a mission, and a mission that I admire so much, and I think you need to share what your mission is with the viewers, if that's okay, Bear.
Yeah. I'm absolutely driven and determined to raise awareness of chronic illnesses and hidden disabilities. And we've only been doing this about a minute, and I'm already getting tearful because
That's
I'm so
okay, mate.
passionate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about something happy. Oh dear.
This conversation will go in any direction you want it to. What will tell everybody what is your passion? Why is this touching so close? Because I know your life has changed dramatically over the last maybe 4 years. Tell everybody where you're at with this at the moment, and then we'll go into maybe what your mission is, so everyone's got a clear picture.
I find myself in a good space at the moment. I've had a fantastic life, and then I was like chopped down with a chronic illness. So I've got ME and fibromyalgia. And I knew nothing about those illnesses when I was diagnosed. And it's been quite a journey to learn about it and then explain to people why suddenly this helicopter flying, motorbike racing guy can't get out of bed. And I've been writing articles and books, and my latest book has just been published, and it's a crime thriller with a detective, the Embleton murders, and I'm already getting good reviews and feedback from people, so that's wonderful.
That's amazing. And why did you write that particular story then?
Initially, I wrote an article called Me and My ME, and it was just meant to be something. It was originally supposed to go in the parish newsletter, and before when I sent it to the editor of the newsletter, there's the little fella as a book. Yeah, the editor of the parish newsletter said, "Right, it's going to be about 6 weeks before it lands on your doorstep, because you're in the wrong part of the cycle for publishing, and it has to be printed and distributed." So I thought I'll put the article onto a Facebook group for chronically ill people, and within a week it was read thousands of times, and I had loads of good feedback. And I just thought, yeah, that the internet's global. You need to do this stuff online. And I started writing article after article. Like I got the bug, and eventually I had 10 articles. Articles is the wrong word. They're like stories, blogs, or whatever. There's humor in there, sadness, a range of emotions. And I thought, if I write the backstory to these little articles, I'll actually have a book. And I did that, and it's been successful insofar as it's sold to many parts of the world, and we've sold hundreds of copies of it. And then I wrote another book on bullying, and then I wrote another book on snoring and sleep apnea, because I kind of like to choose the really sexy topics that everybody wants to read about.
Of course.
But seriously, I thought I need to write a book that anybody wants to read. Not everybody will want to read it, but it could appeal to everybody. And the genre that I chose was crime thrillers because I like detectives. You know, I love Columbo and Frost and all those. And I decided if I make the detective have a chronic illness, they'll learn through his experience of solving the crimes what these are like. It's not the first time it's been done. You know, you might be too young to remember Ironside, who was in a wheelchair. But all the characters that I can find in fiction that have got some disability, they've all come from being attacked by a baddie, and this is an illness, a disability from a viral infection, so it's different in that respect. I'm just rambling on
So
now.
they're all translating, they're all touching on your life and your experiences then.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got me and my, which is obviously. Could you pronounce how you say it? Because I've been trying to practice it and I cannot, for the hell of me, do it.
I've had to learn as well. It's myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is basically muscle pain and inflammation of the brain and spinal cord. There's not a great deal known about the illness. It's very much under researched, but when there've been post-mortem examinations of people with the illness, they do find problems in the brain and the spinal cord. And when my pain's at its worst, it's very difficult to describe, but it's almost like there's an inflatable tube in my spine that's been inflated so hard it's about to burst. It's incredibly painful.
Yeah, wow. So what does each day look like? Are they completely different? Are they similar? Because I know you had to prepare for this chat today, emotionally and physically and energetically wise. Because we've, in our pre-chats we've had many times over the last week or so. What does your day-to-day look like then?
Well, I don't know where to start the day because I suffer from insomnia. That can be a symptom of the illness, but I've always had it. So, that aside. So let's say my day starts when I finally decide to wake up or think my day starts, I actually lie there and think which bits of me are hurting or not hurting today. And it's like the illness is playing a joker on you because you can literally wake up one day and your left shoulder will be in terrible pain, and the next day it'll be your right knee. It doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
But the next bit of the exciting game of this illness is when you get up and try to stand up, you might find you've got intense pain in your feet. So the day starts with I like to think of everything positively, like which bit of me will be in pain today. I know it doesn't sound fun, but you've got to make the best of it. You've got to find some humor in it. Yeah.
And that's what attracted me to you, Bear. You have such a positive mental attitude towards what you face, and considering the life you have led, which I know we'll get into, you've led this life of adventure and amazing achievements and so on, and I can't wait for you to share each of those with the audience. But it's a testament to your attitude, and I hope people can take a lot from this, because it is, you have to play a game with it, right? I suppose that's a nice way of doing it. But how do you, whatever hits you in the day, whatever the pain hits you, how do you do it though? From the point of getting up, what's your process? Do you have a process? What's your strategy for the day?
You kind of got to zoom out from day to day. You've got to think longer term. So in a given week, Monday, Tuesday are my absolute days off. My other half has a restaurant, so it shuts on Monday, Tuesday. So those are our down days. And ideally, we'd do nothing. Just maybe go for a meal, and that would be about it. If we go, heaven forbid, shopping for a new sweet or something, and I'm dragged round all the shops, I just know that's going to impact later in the week because I'm using a limited amount of energy that I have. So Wednesday, Thursday are my active days, and this is a Thursday, I believe, because
It is.
I have memory problems.
Yeah.
Friday is a little bit of a calmer day, but I will do sometimes things on a Friday. Saturday, I go for coffee with a couple of friends on the morning, and the rest of the day I just relax because my other half's busy with the restaurant.
Yeah.
Sunday, I try and have Sunday lunch with some friends, and then we're back to Monday, Tuesday. So
Yeah.
there's very little time when I can be active because I have limited energy, and it's about pacing and managing. So to prepare for this chat today, Wednesday when I would have been active, I did almost next to nothing to recharge my
Yeah.
batteries. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I do. I'm very grateful for that, and I thank you for. I don't want to say prepare. I want you to be healthy for this, and I want you to be okay doing this. And I know you. Well, I was going to share this at the end, but you were one of the. You're one that reached out about this podcast and sharing your story, and I think that's
Yeah.
part of your mission, right? You've touched on it a couple of times, and I think with these books that you prepare, I do want to go through the list that you've got. You've got Me and My Me. You've got Bear With Me, Bear in Mind. You've got My School Bully as well.
Yeah.
But I think you said there was there 6 altogether of that series?
Yeah.
Or
There's
have I got that wrong?
Unbearably Loud, and now the
That's right,
Embleton Murders.
Unbearably Loud. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, no, I love. This is your mission, though. I do believe that's your purpose. Would you agree? Is that your current purpose? Is getting the message through your books, but in a fun, light-hearted way? But I love how you've obviously connected bear into that, and the characters and the beautiful illustrations that you've got of the bear. Just maybe go into that briefly about the books and.
Well, like I described the Bear With Me, the articles, and then it
Yeah.
became a book. And
Yeah.
I can't draw a stick man. I'm originally an engineer by trade, and I can do
Yeah.
engineering drawings, but they're all straight lines or curves or radii, use tools for that.
Yeah.
And I tried asking people who I knew to do the cover. So I've got a friend, and his daughter has she's got autism, and she's a very
Yeah.
good artist. And she started drawing the cover, and then went off on another direction, never finished it. So
Right.
eventually, I found I believe it's a lady because I've never met. I think she's Estonian or something, but she lives in Israel. But God knows about that with the Israel conflict as it is. So she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't speak very good English. So we would communicate through images. So I'd say, the books, bear with me, and I'd send her a few pictures of bears and a little monster, and then she would draw something, and we would get there fairly quickly, really. It was
Yeah.
although it was an alien process to me, we did it quite well, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that you're getting your message through these books, and I hope if people are interested, obviously, I'll put the links in the show notes, and maybe they can have a look at your books online and
Yeah.
purchase from there also. Okay, so you've lived quite an incredible life before this drastic diagnosis in 2000. I think it was 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You were diagnosed with this. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
We will come to that, but let's just travel back in time. Let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your life, and because I know these books tread into some of the trauma that you led through childhood, leading into adulthood as
Yeah.
well. Let's go back to your primary school days.
Yeah.
You were bullied in high school, is that right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. It was a relative of mine, and he was
Mm-hmm.
about 3 years older than me, so physically taller and bigger. And we had to take a bus to school. The journey was about 40 minutes, and you were told where to sit by a teacher, and the teacher, you don't stood in, on the lowest step where you first get onto the bus, so he couldn't see down the bus for most of the time. And I was window next to the window and just was bullied all the way to school and again all the way home. And one Christmas.
And how long did this happen for?
I think I was 7 or 8 years old when I went to the school. So he'll have been about 10, and he'll have left at 16 years old. So about 5 or 6 years, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Sorry, you were going to say something. What were you going to say?
Well, although physically I couldn't fight back, I always thought I was a lot more intelligent than him. And he got a magnetic chess set for Christmas one year, and he brought it on the bus, and I'd never even heard of chess. I was a little boy, and he taught me the rules of chess, and we used to play, and he used to beat me every time. And I slowly got better and better, and then I beat him one day, and it was like absolute victory for me. But not for a moment did he take it in a good way. Just start hitting me again, and we carried on playing chess for a while, and it got to the point where I could beat him every single day, and the chess set never reappeared, and it was just back to the bullying.
Yeah.
And then there was a time when the school alerted my parents to this bullying, and I was moved to a different place on the bus, so I didn't get bullied on the bus anymore. But then it was every time, break times, lunchtime, if he caught me as we passed from classroom to classroom. So I just spent my entire time at school then, like skulking around and trying to avoid him. It wasn't pleasant.
Yeah, it's not a nice way to live your day, especially when you're at school. But it's not a normal bully. It's somebody who you're related to.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, it's just a relative, like a bit like a cousin. I'd probably not say more than that.
How did that affect you? How did you deal with it? Did you try and get any support at all from anybody?
No, back in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have mental health problems and have support, did we?
Yeah.
Obviously
no,
it existed,
not, yeah.
but we didn't acknowledge it like we do now.
Yeah.
So I actually, this might sound odd, I wasn't even aware of how it impacted me until I was in my 30s. And the way it manifested itself, and this started in school, but I hadn't realised the progression of it, is there was a famous song in the 1970s, I Don't Like Mondays, by the Brain Fog. It's a famous song, and it was about an American girl who'd gone into school and shot her classmates. And it resonated with me because I hated Sundays because I didn't want to go to school on the Monday. And it was only as I got older I looked back, and on a Sunday I would always feel really, really anxious, and quite often I'd start drinking or partying and to get rid of the anxiety feelings. And it was only when I finally recognised that terrible destructive behaviour that I was able to. It takes time, like try and calm down on a Sunday. You're not going to get beaten up the next day. It really has a long-term impact, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just those Sunday jiggers, is it? You've internalized it for so long.
Yeah.
It's stayed in your system and your psyche, and it can affect you. And I think that's why, I used to stay up late because I didn't want the next day to arrive so soon. Because if you go to sleep, obviously it arrives quicker, doesn't it, when you're going through really tough times like that. And I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you recall telling me this in our pre-interview, but you did discuss about you you did bring up Sundays later in life, but you also had issue you about hiding on a Sunday. Is that right?
Yeah. My parents would sometimes not be able to find me. There was one particular day where I think they must have gone into a real panic because they couldn't find me. And we lived on a farm, so there was loads of places to hide. And they eventually found me, and I was crying and inconsolable with sadness. And that I had to tell them I was frightened of going to school and getting bullied, and that was around the time when the school notified. Then it must have reached a peak of how bad it was, and
Yeah.
I thought it would be over after that, but it just got worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And so going from high school, that was obviously the majority of your educational life. You then started to, your family life was growing up. Just quickly, because we've not painted that picture actually, and that's normally where I do start off. Whereabouts in the UK did you grow up?
Right. So I grew up in the northeast of England, and I
Hmm.
perhaps had an unusual childhood like that because my father's um, very entrepreneurial. So he'd buy like a rundown farm or small holding, and we'd move into it while he was doing it up. So there was often floorboards up, you know, he was rewiring it and replumbing it, new windows. It was often very, very cold, uh, and it didn't seem unusual to me. That's just the way I grew up. But we got to live in some
Hmm.
fantastic places. We lived in a old railway station for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's very cool. So family childhood was pretty good then. I
Yeah.
mean, apart from the bullying,
Yeah.
you were close to your mother and your father.
Yeah.
Any brothers or sisters?
Yeah. My dad, um, he worked incredibly hard. So although he,
Mm,
he never lived away, was always there. Uh,
mm,
you don't see fathers who work a lot. They come in for the meals, but then they're back out again working. So uh,
yeah, yeah.
I would probably both regret that element, and that many of us have overworked in our lives and ignored friends and family. So there's no
Yeah.
blame to apportion. Uh,
No, of course.
I've got
Do you,
a little sister. Actually, she's not little; she's just younger. Though
mhm.
actually she's about 5'1", so she isn't very big. Um, yeah, so that's it really, I guess.
So, I mean, and and I'll let you explain it. But you leave high school, you go to university, and you study some amazing subjects later at this point going into it. But do you think you got that drive from your father? Then
Definitely.
he's a hard worker.
Yeah.
Which direction did you want to go in? Maybe from him, or just yeah. Where what did you want to be when you were older in high school?
I had no idea. Um, my
Well,
dad
typical
always,
teenager boy thing, right?
yeah, he always worked for himself. So
Yeah.
him and my mother, their mantra was get a good job, work for somebody else. Don't have the worries
Uh,
of being self-employed and having to find money for food to feed the kids and everything.
yeah.
And they decided I'd be going to university and everything. I don't like saying it, but I was quite a bright kid. Um,
You can say that.
so the careers lady asked me, "What do you like doing?" And I told her, and she said, "You're going to either work in forestry or work in IT, as you call it now, there's computing back then, or you'll be an
Hmm.
engineer." And there wasn't many forests in Teesside, so I kind of ruled that one out a bit. Um, IT, I was actually really interested in, and I taught myself we call it coding now, but programming, and I could write
Hmm.
software. But
Yeah.
the idea of sitting at a desk all your 40 hours a week for the rest of your life didn't appeal to me. So I thought I'd go into engineering. I'm sorry if I'm rambling now, but it's just coming out.
No, 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 please.
And
No, keep going. It's fascinating.
I used to love taking things apart and seeing how they worked and everything. Um,
Hmm.
but I lived in Teesside, and the industry was in massive decline. The steelworks were shutting down, and I thought trying to get into an industry that's not very exciting and maybe doesn't have long-term prospects. And I was interested in Formula One, and I thought, oh, maybe I could do an exciting bit of engineering. And I was kind of dissuaded from that by, my parents and the school teachers. Like I think they probably thought it was too distant to a thing to be able to do. It's like too much to achieve. It's like aiming to be a pop star or a Premier footballer. Very few are going to make it.
Yeah.
So I kind of parked that there, and I joined a company making printing presses and food equipment and stuff like that. And I'm
Mhm.
gonna, you'll have to bring me back. I'm gonna do a little bit of jump here, but
Yeah.
later in life, I flew in a helicopter for the first time. It's just a half-hour trial go, and I was in there about 2 minutes. I thought that I'm going to be a helicopter helicopter pilot. Sorry, because
Amazing.
I just thought
No.
I've spent my life being told you can't be a Premiership footballer or an astronaut, and I thought I can't. Sorry.
No. Take your time. Take your time.
So why would I cry about becoming a helicopter pilot? I don't know, but
There's obviously something behind it though. You were being told that you can't do this, you can't do this, but and I know you're going to go into it, and it's just fantastic, right? You take your time.
yeah. Anyways, let's jump back. So I decided to do engineering, and
Hmm.
possibly because my heart wasn't fully in it. I took my eye off the ball a little bit. So I
Yeah.
got lots of offers off big companies, um, like the likes of Ford, Jaguar. I got lots of opportunities,
Was
and
this
I
after
went for,
university?
pardon?
Was
Sorry,
this after university?
no, no, no. So as a
Oh,
as a student, I
yeah.
found out that if you were clever enough, you, companies would sponsor you through university, and you'd have lots
Ah,
more
yeah. I
money.
see what.
And I thought,
Yeah, I see what you mean.
give it a whir. Maybe I'm clever enough. And in the end, I got lots of
Hmm.
offers, so I picked and chose, and went to chose this company, and I chose a university to study at. And it was only when I got my results back that I realised I'd agreed to take a year working in industry before I went to university, and I hadn't even realised I'd agreed to do that. And it was
Oh,
during the year while I was working in the company that I found out I'd chosen a university course that wasn't a normal course. Like normally you do 3 years of university and then you graduate. This was a
yeah.
thin sandwich course, so you did 2 terms and then you worked 6 months in industry, and you did that for 3 years, and then you did a full year at university. So
Right.
I'd gone from thinking, hey, I'm 18 years old, and at 21, I'm going to be working in industry and a graduate, to I didn't
Mm.
leave until I was 23. So another two
Yeah. Wow.
years on. So, hey, kids, if you're looking to get a career, pay attention. Yeah.
So tell everybody what that was in. What was your bachelor in?
Mechanical engineering. Yeah.
Yeah.
The best
So
one
at
to do.
23 years old, what do you do then with your life after your degree, your bachelor?
Right. I've kind of got two lives at this point, or even three.
Yeah. Oh
So
wow.
whilst I was at university, my own entrepreneurial spirit was growing strong. And actually, from school, I started selling things to other kids in the playground. When I went through university, I bought and sold things, and I also got into motorcycling. And I was a motorcycle racer, so that
Wow.
was good. So when
Yeah.
I finished university at 23, I had to make a big decision. Like, do I become an entrepreneur or do I work in industry? And I decided to do the industrial thing.
Hmm.
Um, I've lost my thread where we're going. I'm really sorry, Andrew. It's my
No,
concentration.
it's fine.
What,
You were just
what
talking about your.
was
Oh, sorry, say that again.
what one, where were we going? What was the question?
Oh, you were talking about your 2, 3 different lives, and we're kind of in the gap between your bachelor's before you started your next part of your education.
Right,
But I was going to allow you to bring that one in.
right. So, so I chose to work in industry. I
Yeah.
was still racing motorbikes at this time,
Hmm.
but then my girlfriend at the time had a very serious motorbike accident, and my best friend had a very serious motorbike accident, and
Wow.
my dad was stood next to me at a motorbike meeting, and I was racing that day, but I was watching the course to because you can learn things about the track, whether
Mm.
maybe oil spilt or dirt is or something. And a guy was killed in an accident in front of us that day.
Oh my word.
And you know, it's not like it is now. They put the person in an ambulance and take them away. And once the ambulance returns to the circuit, the meeting resumes and the races continue. So my
Mm.
dad had to watch me go and race a motorbike after we'd seen a guy killed. Um, and I just
Oh.
thought it's just unfair to keep racing, you know. And my friends are getting injured, and I had a couple of friends killed by then. So I knocked the motorbike thing on the head. Everything, like I sold my road bike. I've never raced again since,
Wow.
and I my relationship was falling apart as well, and I hated my job because I was in a desk for 40 plus hours a week, and it was
Hmm.
everything I didn't want.
Yeah.
And my dad said to me, I was back home one weekend, and it was an afternoon, and he said to me, "You do know you can come home if you need to and live here for a while." And I hadn't realised how upset and how the world was got on top of me. And the next day, I went into work, handed in my notice, and I ended the relationship with my partner at the time and returned home. And it was like an
Yeah.
enormous weight off my shoulders.
Yeah. It would be at
So
that age for sure.
I'll just ramble on for now while I'm thinking of something, if that's all right. So I
Yeah.
moved back home, and I was full of the joys of life, and I bought a kit car and made a fast car so I could keep my adrenaline going because I didn't have bikes then. And
Hmm.
my entrepreneurial side was coming out, and I was making garden furniture like benches and things to sell, and that was keeping me going money wise. But I realised that this summer of enjoyment couldn't go on forever, and would have to get a job. But I thought, I don't want a job, and I don't feel like I did the university thing fully. So I went to a university. It was before the internet. You couldn't go on a website and find out what they offered, and it was in the summer.
Hmm.
So in the summer, there's no students. Half the academics are on holiday, and I just went to the engineering department, wandered round, and there's a secretary in this glass-fronted office, and I knocked on the door and explained I was interested in maybe doing a master's degree or a PhD, and she said, "Oh, I'll get this guy to give you a look round." He was a lecturer, and he took me around the department, and most of the work was on computers running simulations and things like that. And I thought, I don't want to do that. And then he took me in the biomedical engineering lab, and to be honest, it doesn't smell very nice because you do testing in biological fluids, and they can be a bit whiffy, particularly in the summertime. But there's all these machines that are like whirring round, going up and down, and like testing things. And I thought that's what I want to do. Um, so I finished the tour, and she gave me some forms, and I went and filled them in. I took them back to the office, and the secretary's on the telephone. Anyway, this guy walks in and he's got like white hair, white goatee beard. He's got an immaculate suit on with a hanky. And he says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm very interested in doing biomedical engineering, a PhD." And he started asking me a few questions, and he said, "Just give me the forms. I'll give them to the secretary. Don't you worry about it." It was about 20-minute drive from the university to my parents' home. And by the time I got home, he'd rang my parents, and he was the head of the School of Engineering, and he was the biomedical engineering professor. So it's quite serendipitous the way it worked out. And he was free to just give me a PhD studentship. So I was sponsored to be a student and do a PhD. So
Wow.
that's kicked off the next phase of my life, as it were.
Yeah, I'm glad you made that trip. So that was a PhD in biomedical engineering, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So where did that take you after that?
Well, I didn't enjoy the best of relationships with that professor who was my supervisor. And
Oh, wow.
I wrote about this in Bear in Mind. And I was very surprised. Well, a lot of my peers at the time read the book and they said they felt really bullied by this man as well.
Wow. Yeah. So there's
Yes,
other
I was
people
really
bullied by him as well
yeah,
as you.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, we all felt bullied by this guy. So um,
hmm
I'd been there about a year and a half, and I'd got this machine to work that mimicked walking, and you tested artificial hip joints on it. And
hmm
at the time, these were incredibly rare in the world, and big companies like Biomedical, Johnson and Johnson, uh, needed as much testing facility as they could. So they would pay about £5,000 per week to do a test, part of the testing on the machine. The tests would run for about 3 months. So the money the university was making was incredible. And I was getting
Yeah.
£5,000 a year off the university. Yeah, it sucked a bit, that. So
Mm.
after about 18 months, I said to him, I can't afford to go on. Will you give me a reference? I need to get a job. And he offered me a job and he told me it would be, let's say, for example, £16,000 a year. But when the contract arrived, it was like £14,000 a year. So every time he was like really awkward and, you couldn't trust him. And we
hmm
had a massive argument. Like I nearly took the door off his hinges of his office, you know, and we didn't speak for several days. The secretary was like the go-between, and eventually we got a contract that we both felt happy to sign. So it was, for example, something like £15,000 a year, but I got double annual increments. So over the full course of the contract, I would be even with what he originally proposed. But
What
when
was
the
his issue,
contracts come to the end,
do you think?
sorry, Andrew, what did you say?
What was his issue, do you think?
Am I allowed to say he was a prick? Uh,
Mate, you're free to say whatever you want. Yeah.
sorry. No, I think he was a
No, no.
bully, and
Yeah.
he had control of people, and everyone experienced this. So when your contract came to an end, he would like go, "Oh, I don't know if I've got the money to keep you and everything," but he did. He was earning a lot of money from the testing. So
hmm
anyway, because I was a member of staff, you have two examiners for your PhD, and one for member staff, they both had to be external from the institution. And one of my examiners was a guy called Professor Duncan Dowson. He was a fellow of the Royal Society. He's the most intelligent man I've ever met, and he did my examination with another eminent professor. Anyway, about a month later, he's back in the building doing somebody else's PhD, and he came over and he said, "How you doing, Bear? How's things?" And I said, "Oh, my contract's nearly up. I don't know what I'm doing. And he said, I've got a contract you can have. So I went to work for the opposition, which kind of stuffed my professor, and I kind of liked that. Yeah. And the work was really interesting because my position was International Research Fellow at this next university. I'm going to keep the names out of it because the position was funded by a massive biomedical company. And in reality, although I worked for the university, I worked every day in the bowels of this company in their research labs, testing metal on metal hip joints and other new technologies. And I don't know when you want to go about this, but there's another story to that comes back into my life years later.
Go with whatever you think.
Yeah. So then when that contract came to an end, I got another job at another university as a medical innovation manager, and I managed medical projects and stuff like that. But all the time I'd been doing entrepreneurial stuff in the background. I had a business delivering alcohol late at night and stuff like that. And I just thought, oh, you know what? Stop working for other people and just do your own thing. And I'd invented an alarm for the elderly and disabled, and I won a few awards off the Department for Trade and Industry to develop this alarm. So I did that for a few years.
An award-winning inventor.
Yeah.
There.
And I have
That's
the
incredible.
awards to prove it.
I believe you. It's fantastic.
And I was doing other things, like I bought a few houses that I rented out for people that I rented out. And I also managed houses that other people own properties. And there was a common theme kept coming up that the tenants would leave and the gardens would be overgrown in the bushes. And I would have to ring lots of companies to come and get quotations. And one quotation might be £100 and the other one £1,000. There was no sense to it. And it was really hard to get them to come and quote, and then even harder to do the job. And I started doing it myself. And I thought, I can do this better than them. I'll set a gardening company up. So that's what I did. And it was phenomenal. I wrote an operation.
You did well
manual.
with that.
You what? Sorry?
You did well with that company then?
Oh, yeah.
Creating that company?
Yeah. Before I started trying to trade, I wrote like an operation manual, how to train the staff. I had the logo professionally designed and everything. Uniforms, like they had green in the colours, but every bit of colour matched. I tried to do it as professionally as I could. And I set it up and started trading. And obviously I started from nothing. I had no customers. And this was a long time ago, by the way. So within 6 weeks, I was taking £750 a week. And 4 weeks after that, it was £1,250 a week. And I had to buy 3 vans. I had loads of staff, and it was just a monster, And
wow.
I'm not materialistic, but the money was a measure to me of being successful. It's not the money per se. It's just that I see that's how people think wealth makes you successful, but not for me. But it meant that people thought I was successful, which maybe at the time I wanted,
Yeah. Were you happy? That is the main thing. Were you happy doing the job though, despite the money? Were you happy each day with what you were doing with the business and providing obviously a great service and having those staff on board?
No, this is true that this happened, right? So I used to work really long hours. I was doing what my dad did, ignoring everybody, and I pulled into where we parked the vans on a night, and it was into the evening. You know, it wasn't 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. It was God knows what time. And I just put my arms on the steering wheel. I was just crying. And there was a knock on the door, on the window, and it was one of my customers. And I like wiped my eyes and wound the window down because it wasn't electric back then; it was winders. And he went, "Oh," because he could tell I'd been crying. He said, "Could you come and give me a quote to do some more work at my property?" So there was no like sympathy or anything for me, and it was about this time someone bought me a half-hour go in a helicopter. And like I said earlier, I was in it for about 2 minutes. I just thought, I'm going to be a helicopter pilot. I'm sick of people telling me what I can't do. I've had me set a business up. I've achieved what to me meant success for other people. Just going to do what I want to do now, and I'm going to be a pilot.
Why were you crying back in the van, can I ask?
Sorry?
Why were you crying in the back of the van?
I don't remember
in the van,
why.
sorry.
Some crap had happened and I was crying, you know.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a kind of a build-up of everything. That's all from the work, taking its toll.
Crier, as you know.
That's okay. That's good. So the pilot was the next stage after the. I mean, it's kind of bizarre, isn't it? You're in a garden. You set up a gardening business.
Yeah.
You're getting frustrated with the world, and you're sick of getting told what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
It's gardening. Was it straight to piloting?
Yeah. When it went into winter that year, there's less gardening to do, and in the previous couple of years, I'd had all the guys work through the winter, and it was a struggle to find jobs to pay the bills, you know. So it was I was using my money to really pay them to work through the winter, and I just thought, oh, I'm going to be a pilot. So I let most of the guys go, and just kept one or two of them on, and I would get them set up for the day working, and I'd go up to the airport and start learning to fly a helicopter. And I hadn't been doing it very long, and one of the instructors took me to one side and he said, why are you training in England? It's so expensive. You need to go to Australia or South Africa or somewhere. So I looked into it, and America was where I wanted to go, to Oregon. So I applied for a visa, applied to the school, put my business up for sale, sold my business, and moved to Oregon. Just like that.
Before we get into that, I'm just trying to imagine that day where you go from setting up your guys at work, gardening, was it in Teesside, near Newcastle, north east of England? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you just drive to the airport. I mean, what a contrast in your morning. I'm just trying to, I'm glad we touched base on your father, because I think this is where it came from. You're seeing your dad dabble in the different things, buying property, buying farms, and doing them up, living in railways and so on like this. Obviously, it's the same. It's different, but it's the same. If you know what I mean, like that personality trait. And obviously times are different further on in life than what your dad had in opportunities that he had, but he grabbed them by the skin of his, you know, and then you're doing it in the modern day, and obviously it would be different if now for people doing it when they're young, because they've got different opportunities again. But you're applying for visas and you're flying off to America, and you, because it's cheaper. Is it quicker, I assume? I mean, I did that with teaching. I couldn't get into teaching in England. So that's why I applied to...
Sorry, my alarm went off for my next tablet. So if you talk for a second, I'll take another tablet.
No, you got to do your thing, mate. So please take it. No, and you know, this is not about me, but I couldn't get into teaching in England, so I applied to Australia.
Yeah.
And within 6 weeks, I'm in Australia all of a sudden studying primary education at a university here. So I can definitely relate to this. But I think a lot of people do struggle with that aspiration, that dream, going, oh, I can't do that. But you can do it. You did want to do it, and you did it. So you get to Oregon. You start to you start to practice. Sorry, what's I don't even. What's the lesson? What's the words I'm looking for? You're starting to learn how to fly.
Yeah, you start training. Yeah, so
Training. Yeah.
I enrolled on the full course, so you become a private pilot first. So you're allowed to fly a helicopter, but you can't make money.
Right.
Then I did my commercial license when you can start earning money. But in America, that's not how you get into the industry. So you have to become an instructor, and your first job is teaching people to fly. But
Wow.
as I said, I did the full thing, so I got an instrument rating and instrument instructor rating. So I had the whole shebang. There was nothing left, and I didn't look like I look now. I deliberately was well. When you're a gardener, you're not heavy. It's very physical. But when I decided to become a pilot, I really watched my diet, because every bit of weight you have affects the helicopter. So if you're lighter, you can carry a bit more fuel, and you can train heavier pilots because obviously a lot of people are taller and bigger than I were, and it gave me an advantage in the job market by being very lightweight.
Right.
And I got hired in the first round of applications after I became an instructor, and started teaching people to fly in Oregon and Washington and all that around that area. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. So how long were you over in the west side of the States then?
How long was I there for? About a year, maybe about a year and a half or something. And it was during this time training that I met a new girlfriend who was also a helicopter pilot. She was Norwegian, and she didn't get hired. And I got the chance of a job in Tennessee flying turbine helicopters, bigger helicopters, and it was doing tours, flying tourists around. So it was another type of flying. And I went to get interviewed for the job, and she came with me, and we inquired about her getting a job somewhere else as a pilot, and we both got offered jobs, so we moved to Tennessee. But she'd been in America a bit longer than me, and the visas only last 2 years, so we weren't there very long, and we had to leave the US. So we moved to Norway. I lived in Norway for about a year, and we couldn't fly because we had American licenses, not European ones. And we were saving up with the idea that we'd retrain to have a European license. But when I'd been in America, I had done other jobs, and I'd done a job where I picked a helicopter up from Aruba and I flew it through the Caribbean and the Bahamas and up into Fort Lauderdale in Florida and delivered it for a customer. And I'd kept in touch with the Aruban guys and said, look, if you need a pilot, I'm your man, And anyway, the guy sold the company to some Venezuelan brothers and sisters, and they decided they were going to expand and they needed 2 pilots. So me and my Norwegian girlfriend at the time moved to Aruba, and we flew helicopters around Aruba, and it was fantastic. Yeah.
Wow. That's what I love about people being able to connect, and I think we struggle with it these days, with maybe the younger generations. That's what my observation anyway. I don't know if anyone else feels the same about that, but I love the connection that you create, because it just creates opportunities. And if you hadn't stayed in touch with those people, how would you have even ended up back there? How long were you there for then?
About couple of years or something.
Oh wow, cool.
There's a bit of a twist in the tale. So
okay, we like that.
When you go to live on an island like that, their organization, the administration of the country isn't like a European one. So the
Yeah. Yeah.
application process for a visa typically took 1 to 2 years. So when new pilots came to the island, you can't really sit for 2 years in England or Austria or wherever you are waiting for the visa. So you have to go there and work illegally while your
Oh,
visa is processed. And this
okay.
helicopter company had various owners over the years, but this was the mechanism that worked. And you couldn't leave the island until your visa was granted because you would have been spotted and thrown out of the island, you see, because you're an illegal alien.
Hmm.
So my girlfriend at the time, her two of her grandparents became very ill, and she felt the need to fly back to Norway in case they passed away. And when she flew back to Aruba, she was in immigration was sort of not captured but detained and put on the
Mm.
first flight back to Norway because she didn't have a
Oh
visa,
no.
and I've never seen her again. Or not in real life. I've had like we're doing now, a video call. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like stuck in Aruba now, and I can't leave. And a few months later, my visa was provisionally granted. Uh, and my solicitor said, because he knew I wanted to go back to the UK, I had a wedding, some friends getting married. He said, "You got it provisional, go back to the UK, all will be well, you know?" So I did
Mm.
that, and I've been back home less than a day, and I opened my laptop and I logged onto my emails, and they'd noticed that I'd left the country and they cancelled my provisional visa, and I couldn't go back to Aruba. So in the space of a few months, I'd lost like my relationship, I'd lost my job, and I was like stuck in the UK, and I didn't have a European license, so I couldn't even work as a pilot. Um,
Oh no.
so I had to live at home again and go back to flying helicopters and getting my license so I could work in the UK. So quite
But
a
you did that though. You kept the pilot license going, and you was able to form a career in the UK doing that
yeah. So
going
there was
forward.
very few jobs in the. There's not many helicopter jobs in the UK compared to
Mm.
hilly, mountainous places and the US and stuff. So I got trained, and the local helicopter school where I trained at originally, and then just recently at that time said, "We'd love to give you a job, but we've got two pilots already, and but keep in touch." Anyway, one of the pilots broke his foot in a motorbike accident, and they said, "Oh, we need you to work for us." So I started work again, and the ownership of the helicopter company changed yet again, and one of the pilots went to work offshore, and another pilot went to work offshore. So it was me on my own, and I became chief pilot, and I
Oh,
just flew the maximum amount of hours you're allowed under the rules, because obviously you can't
yeah.
just fly forever, and did that
Yeah.
for a few years.
Wow,
Um,
that's amazing. So you're right. You lost everything in a split second there. That when you're back in the UK, was there no way of reconnecting with that partner at the time?
no, but she lived in Norway, and
I mean, it's
I
a lot
was in
closer
Aruba.
than
There was
where
a
you were,
few.
though.
Sorry, sorry.
It was
What
a
do you?
lot closer than where you were.
Well, yeah, but there'd been a gap of a few months, so we both were very amicable about it. It was a
Yeah,
situation forced upon us, and we just
yeah.
agreed that we'd have to go our separate ways. So yeah,
Mm,
and we remain friends, but we don't talk very often at all.
mm, yeah. So you spent a couple of years doing the helicopter flying in the UK. Where does your life then tend to lead? How old are you at this point?
All right, so I've come back to the UK at about 40, and I've
Hmm.
started flying again, and I flew for another 6 years. But
Yeah.
when I got back in the country, a guy who'd been in the office next to me doing the PhD all them years ago, he was now very high up in a university. He shortly after became a professor, and we went out for dinner because we remained friends all this time because we both support Middlesbrough Football Club, and over dinner,
Was he the one that bullied you, or is this someone
no,
different?
different
Sorry.
one, different guy altogether.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
he's Professor Robbie Musto in the Embleton murders.
Oh, the one. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
And he described this course that a module he ran at the university, and I said that sounds wonderful. That the students get to design little things and make them and test them, and I thought that's really good. And then I'd fallen hook, line, and sinker for what he had intended. He said, "We need a lecturer. Would you come and do it?"
Oh, wow.
So
Another one to the list. Another
yeah,
job title to this amazing list that you've already got.
I'm flying full time, apart from Friday afternoons when I'm lecturing and supervising students. So I did that for a few years. I got really sick of flying helicopters. It's not the flying, it's the paperwork and like rich guys ringing you up at 11 o'clock at night, say, right, you're picking me up at 8 o'clock in the morning, we're going to fly to Manchester. And you think, you don't know anything about the weather, mate, the helicopter, my hours, and I just got sick of it. So I retired as a pilot in 2016, and I'm working part-time for the university. And in my head, I'm semi-retired, and life's good. I've got a new partner. We've got a dog. We're living in the country in a barn conversion, and she's grew up on farms as well. It's like all sweet. And then the university goes through a big change. If you work in any organization long enough, they have to change it. And after a few years, they change it back to where it was to start with, but by the by.
Yeah.
And everybody who was part-time was getting made redundant, or the contracts weren't being renewed, all that palaver. And I thought, right, I'm going to get canned here, before long. And the new big boss calls me into his office and he said, how would you like to go full time? And I kind of was like a rock and a hard place. I didn't want to be full time. I didn't need to be financially, but equally well, I couldn't afford to not work. So I went full time, and I got involved in politics of the university, the internal struggles, and they wanted to promote me to be a director of a new degree. And I didn't want to do it. You didn't get more money for it. It would just be a pain. And I said I politely decline. I've got issues in my private life. And from that moment on, I was persona non grata. You're not in the emails, you're not getting to the meetings. If you do go to the meeting, you're put down. It's like you don't realize that you're being bullied, but it's like not in your face, it's not being punched. And
subtle,
anyway,
very small, subtle.
Yeah.
It's very small, subtle steps, isn't it? You don't even realize you bullied probably until like 2 months later.
Oh, it's insidious. It's horrible. So, I've been on holiday, and I came back, and Robbie Musto's there, my professor, line manager now, and he comes to see me on my office, and I can tell there's something wrong. And he says, we've had some complaints about a sign on your door. And all it said was, before you knock, please read this. And it was written humorously to say, can you not email me to arrange a meeting? You might be disturbing a meeting. There might be 6 of us in there, And loads of lecturers had something to the same effect, but not humorous or anything like that. Anyway, I had to have a meeting with personnel or HR. And I took the sign down, and they were like going, this doesn't meet our ethos and our blah, blah business. But, I just thought, I'm a really good lecturer with the best of intentions for the students. And you're going on about some non-corporate sign. Anyway, not long after that, Robbie Mustoe was forced by senior management to go on a sabbatical. You can take one after 3 years at the university. He'd been working over 10 years when he could have been on one, and they suddenly force him out of the university. And when you're on sabbatical, you can't do your normal work. You can't have normal contact with people. You're supposed to be doing new and exciting things, writing books and papers and visiting other institutions and companies. So he was kind of out of reach at the time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I got this email saying, you've got to go and see the boss in the morning. We've had some complaints. And I went in his office.
More complaints?
Yeah. And I'm thinking, what have I done wrong? I haven't done anything wrong. I'm good. I'm a good lecturer. And I went in and he said, we've had some complaints of you mistreating students. I said, what? And he said, I can't tell you what they are. There's going to be an investigation. You're suspended. You can't talk to anybody. You can't be in contact with anyone. You've got to turn your email to, out of office. And I was like frog marched back to my office. And I used to go on a motorbike in and out of university. So I had to get dressed in my motorbike gear while this creep watched me do it, get changed. And escorted to my motorbike and watched until I rode off. And how I didn't crash on the way home, it's about a 40-mile journey, because it was just overwhelming. And I've never been suspended in my life, I don't get complaints about my behaviour. And anyway, they had an investigation, which wasn't an investigation. They just decided I must have mistreated these students. I didn't realise it immediately, but I found out soon after that they'd done the same to another colleague on the same day, and the bulk of the complaints were really against him, and they just pushed me under the bus with him and linked the two of us together. So there was one complaint was against him, and the student provided a screenshot of a mobile phone, a text message saying, did you see that in the thing today about him? And I looked at the date on this image months later because I wasn't provided with this information. And I hadn't been in work that day. I had a back injury. And that text message about another lecturer was taken as proof that I'd done something wrong. And I wasn't even there. It was just
So what happened then? How did you provide that information to them?
No, the opportunity wasn't provided for that. I was isolated, and they dragged it out. It took about 9 months before they held a meeting in my absence because I had really severe physical and mental decline because being suspended and isolated, and the lack of justice because I hadn't done these things. And I got a viral infection and I got ME, but I didn't know I had ME. I just knew, I'm fatigued. I was having trouble speaking. I couldn't count. Memory problems. And officially, even though I'd been suspended, I was now officially off sick because I was too ill.
Yeah.
And they had me assessed by 2 separate people who found me too ill to work and take part in any of this. So a third person who never met me, never spoke to me, decided I was well enough to take part in a meeting, and they dismissed me in this meeting in my absence. And it was only at that point I started to recover because I wasn't getting bullied anymore. And I took the university. Well, I started the employment tribunal process. That went on for about 2 years after that. So all this time, it's like utter turmoil in my life. And at the 11th hour, we'd been discussing settlement figures for me not to go to the tribunal in full. They offered me a big chunk of money on condition I didn't take them to the tribunal and I signed a non-disclosure agreement.
So so them doing that then, did they know they were dismissing you under incorrect information then?
Oh, they had to. Well, once I took them to the start of the employment tribunal process, they were compelled by law to release documents to me, and there was plenty of evidence of that going on. So they didn't want it to be an employment tribunal, you know. And one of the reasons I didn't take them there was they have barristers and they can just rip you apart. And if there's a decision is made by the judge, it goes on a government website for anybody to read. And I wasn't keen on them reading lies. They'd already made enough lies up about me. What else were they going to throw at me? So I took the option to take the money and have a quiet life from that point on.
I mean, it sounds like you made the right decision under your frame of mind at that time. What dark did it take you to? Any dark places during that time? Because I know when you're being obviously when you're being bullied, you feel so isolated, you feel so alone, you feel like there's nobody else in the world that's going through that. No one's probably believing you. I mean, are you venting during this time to anyone? Are you talking and opening up to anyone? Are you seeking support?
A few days after I was suspended, I fell down some concrete steps, probably because I was so distracted with the stress of what was going on, and I aggravated an old injury in my left shoulder from my time as a pilot. So I went to see the GP, and I genuinely went there to say to her, I've aggravated this injury. Can we do anything about it? And she, I went in, sat down. She said, "What's the matter?" And I just broke down, uncontrollable, like sobbing. And I told her what had happened. And I spent, I don't know how long, over an hour in that consultation. So I apologise to the people waiting in the waiting room, but she said, "You've taken the first step, you've spoken to somebody, her." And she said something at the time which I found really profound, and it's proven to be completely true. She said, "You must consider the very real possibility that you will never work again." And I've never worked since then.
Do you think it was down? Oh, sorry, go on.
I realised she's a doctor. She's very experienced. She'd seen this before, not with the university, but an employer bullying a member of staff, and the profound effect that has on your mental and physical health,
Absolutely. I can totally relate to it 100%. And so you've not worked again since that day. Do you think you didn't enter work because I think, if I can remember correctly from our pre-chat, that was around the October 19, you went on stress leave, is that correct?
Well, I was suspended, but I was suffering from stress, which is why I went to see the doctor. And she gave me they call it a fit note, but it's you're not fit to work. And she wrote it as work-related stress,
And then you were diagnosed a few months later. Oh, you woke up, sorry, not being able to do you share it. You woke up not being able to do some very, very simple daily routines and without knowing. What was the time frame between being off work into when the effects of ME started to come out in your life?
So my last day of work was October the 24th, 2019. It's burnt into the memory, that one. And my health declined really rapidly, mental and physical. And my partner and I went to Tenerife in the January, and the idea was we'd get a bit of sun on our bones, try and forget what was going on, and really all the holiday served to show was in what poor health I was. We'd been to on holiday there before. We would walk for hours, to stop at a bar, have a drink, and have something to eat. And, we'd walk about, and because like we're not sunbathers and stuff like that. And I couldn't walk. Even the slightest hill, I was like completely out of breath. I couldn't walk up it. And we came home, and in February, I came down with a viral infection. I was in bed for 7 weeks, and I couldn't catch my breath. I honestly thought I was going to die a few times. It was only like inhalers that were keeping me going. And after the end of the 7 weeks, I couldn't. I'd try to mow the lawn, and I'd be exhausted straight away. You wake up feeling fatigued, and the pandemic hit, and my partner has a restaurant. She shut and decided to do takeaways, and she furloughed the staff. So there's like her, and I said, "Well, I'll help you, like cut up veg and do the takeaways." Or and I'm not a cook, and I was like absolutely exhausted, like peeling a few carrots. And so she started like giving me other jobs to do, like, all right, we need to have so many roast potatoes. Can you count out the potatoes so we know how many portions we got? Because everybody gets 3. I couldn't count. And I was like, what's happening? And all this time, the university are like, say, we don't believe you're ill. So they had 2 people assess me and found me So another one's like, oh, he's well enough to go to a meeting to decide whether he's been mistreating students. And I couldn't even read. And Robbie Musto, I would forward my emails to Robbie, and he would read them, and then he'd like have a quick conversation with me, and try and tell me in a couple of sentences what was going on, and none of it was good. And when they finally dismissed me, the biggest reason was, they said I took my dog into the office occasionally, which wasn't allowed under the rules. And it was allowed under the rules, or at least it wasn't forbidden. It was just a nonsense. Yeah.
There seems to be a crossover between the time of going through the hardship at work to you getting ill. I'm not a doctor, and but over the last 2 years, I've been reading a lot and studying a lot on human biology and longevity and things like that. And I went through a period where I had my gallbladder removed, but I'd come away from probably chronic stress time in my life, and I have no answers. Gallbladder removal is obviously quite common, but they did say to me in the surgeon's office afterwards that there was not much research into why they would have it, but the people that tend to have the gallbladders out is through alcohol or a really poor diet. Now, I don't do either of those. Growing up, I very English diet, eat a lot of processed foods, a lot of ultra processed food, should I say, a lot of chocolate. And I went through a period here eating a lot of chocolate when I was depressed, distressed, and not far off wanting to commit suicide when I was being work bullied in 2015. But so I can't prove it. And people will say, we just had too much chocolate. But I don't know how the time frame doesn't add up with how I changed my food. But I'd come away from a very stressful situation, not bullying, just another stressful situation like most people go through. But I had my gallbladder removed, and I think the stress, physiologically speaking, does so much damage on our bodies. I know I rambled on me there slightly, but do you think that was a deep root cause of your ME? I know there's not much evidence to know where ME came from, but what just seems to be a good timing crossover-wise. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I think whilst there isn't definitive scientific research, the anecdotal evidence is just overwhelming that a combination of stress and then something else like trauma or a viral infection, bacterial infection, triggers ME, fibromyalgia, long COVID, all of these things. Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems to be that crossover, doesn't it? It's something deep in your brain where you're just being heavily affected, and all your systems go down, and it just allows this to take over. And it's like, I mean, I can't speak at that cellular level where it's going wrong, but that just shocks. So you're going through that time of finding out. You are on a mission about getting the awareness raised around ME. Maybe this is a good time to talk about ME in a little bit more depth, and what else is known as well, because I think there's a few different names to it as well, as it's also known as the chronic fatigue syndrome, CFS. Or so you mentioned in your pre-notes before we discussed how it's affected you on your day-to-day activities. Talk a little bit more for those who don't know what ME is, and the effects of maybe your physical exercise as well, and the
well, there's many symptoms, but I'd say the three most common are fatigue. You wake up and you're just exhausted. This isn't tiredness. This is you've run a marathon the day before, kind of tired, or fatigued. Shouldn't say that. Pain, unexplained pain in different parts of the body, makes no sense at all. And 3, brain fog, which is a non-scientific term for cognitive problems. So short concentration, problems with your short-term memory, long-term memory recall, speech, counting, all sorts of problems. And that's, whilst I have all 3 on a personal level, I've come to realize that my intelligence is the thing that I cherish, and not being able to access it, I find really hard to cope with. But there's tons of other symptoms: nausea, vertigo, IBS. I mean, there's lists people produce of like maybe 100 symptoms. It's crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
And possibly the easiest way to describe what it's like living with it is, imagine you've got an old phone and the battery's not what it was, and you put it on charge for ages, and then it's only got like 20% in, and you start using the phone and it goes flat in no time. And it's like your body is behaving like a broken battery. And that's one of the common terms to use to describe ME.
Wow. Wow. So you were diagnosed 3 years ago. You've got such a positive mental attitude. What lies in the future for Dr. Bear Lawrence now? Because you've got the books, you're getting the message out there. You reached out to me somehow. You found me on. I don't know how you did that, because I love that you found me and wanted to do this. But what does the future lie for Dr. Bear Lawrence then going forward?
Well, I've published my first crime thriller with DCI Parish.
Yes.
Who's living with ME.
Yeah.
And I don't want to become famous, and I don't want to make loads of money. I want to raise awareness. And to raise awareness, I need to sell loads of books. And I've done research, and you need to write about half a dozen books before you get enough followers and they start to snowball that you sell a lot of books. So my intention is to write 6 DCI Parish novels. In one way, I'm not going to say to myself, I'm going to do that and put a burden on my shoulders. And there's that competitive side of me already thinking, oh, it's not going to be 6, son, it's going to be 20. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. But this is my first podcast. I've been invited to do others. And
nice.
I'm not familiar with, we were saying this about TikTok and all the rest of it, but I am aware of a thing called YouTube, and it's very popular. So the Isabel Lawrence channel, but it's it's unpopulated at the moment. And the idea, I think, is when I've done a few podcasts, if I get the permission off the people who've done them, to put them on my Bear Lawrence channel. And I think that'll also help to gain traction with awareness and the books and everything
Absolutely.
else.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I love how you've got pieces of your life jigsaw and made them into these books. I'm fascinated. I am fascinated to read this your most recent one. I've got it here for those who can see it. Could you give us a little bit more about DCI Paris? Could you give us a little bit of a blurb? If I was to read a blurb of the back of the book, could you, for those who are listening, could you give us a bit of a blurb on that one, an outline of the story?
Well, the original idea was for Professor Myalgic Encephalomyelitis, or Professor Fibromyalgia, and he was going to be some sort of Italian academic who solved murders. And I just thought, it doesn't quite work. Anyway, I went on a writing group thing, just one evening in the pub. There's a famous author lives about 5 houses down from me by coincidence. And she gave out notes on how to write a novel. And your first thing you do is identify the character and write down everything about them. So DCI Parish was born. He lives in a stone cottage in Helmsley. He's retired from the Met. He was a brilliant detective, very insightful and hardworking. He's 6 foot tall, so he's taller than me. He's got a bald head and he's a bit fat like me. And Johnny Cash plays on his phone. That's like the degree you have to go to. You have to know what he likes to eat and drink.
Yeah.
So, so he's in this book. He's retired from the Met. Like myself, struggling to come to terms with his illness, but he's getting there, And his old friend, Professor Robbie Musto, has seen these 2 staff disappear mysteriously from the university while he was on sabbatical. And a bit after that, so you can see where I started with this idea. And I thought, I'm going to get my own back on these people and murder them, but not really, because you've had the dark thoughts. I used to think dark thoughts meant suicide. And whilst there can be that, there can be the darkest thing ever, but we're talking Hannibal Lecter kind of. You don't go looking for these thoughts. They jump into your head when you're in a really dark place. So I thought,
Absolutely.
You know what? I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to murder the buggers off. And there's 2 deaths that are seemingly explained as suicide and obese guy, heart attack. And then a 3rd member of staff goes missing, and they are properly murdered, big time murder. And Robbie Musto's already been talking to DCI Parish. Like, I'm a bit I don't believe in coincidences. These 2 people dying, And Parish starts looking into it, and he uses his old contacts to contact the police and say, I think there's something going on here, and they don't pay him any attention. And then this 3rd member of staff goes missing initially. She's not reported missing or anything, but Robbie Musto realizes she's not turning in to work, so he tells Parish. Parish has a word with the police and going, there's something up here. And they kind of poo-poo it a little bit. And then a body's found in the woods.
Wow.
And the guy Parish has been talking to says, we need to look at this woman, and it is this woman. And they investigate it, as police do. And they just run out of leads. They do everything they can. And they decide to turn to Parish. And they're a bit worried about it because, he's retired from the Met on health grounds, But they know he's key. Anyway, comes... gets involved and does his thing. Catch a murderer, or maybe not, maybe they do. What else happens in the book? There's a twist at the end.
Yeah, don't give too much away, Bear.
No. Yeah.
No, I can see how it fits into. I can see the symbolism and the characterization of the book and how it translates from you and how you're trying to get, the closure, the closure from some of the traumas that you've been through. If you've had such an amazing life and done so many things, and if there was a graph, I think it would be like that. You touched on dark spaces before we end this, and I do want to end up on a positive. But you'd mentioned dark places there. What was the darkest place for you?
Well, I have had thoughts of suicide come to me, but also,
Mm-hmm.
unwanted thoughts of hurting the people who caused all this problem for me, and I'd
Yeah,
never act on them, and you don't want
of course.
these thoughts, but they do come, and I've had counselling in 2020, and I'm having counselling now. I'm in
Yeah.
a good place, but you need to talk, and I'm not always the best talker, you know. I mean, it doesn't
You've
seem
you've
like that, but because I'm
you've
talking to you,
spoken
but
really well today about everything. I'm glad you've been vulnerable, and I think people who are going to watch this episode will will feel safe to do so if
mm,
for whatever they're struggling with as well, whether it's something very similar or something completely different. But
yeah,
this is more about creating a safe space so people can feel vulnerable to speak out with whatever they're suffering with. Yeah, it's a tough one. And what's the end for you in regards to ME? Are you seeking an end? Are you searching for an end at all?
uh, I think the vast majority of people are,
Mm,
you're desperate to get better, and
yeah,
the medical profession aren't helping. So you look for all sorts of crazy treatments. So
yeah.
there was a disgusting episode of Dragon's Den just last week where an entrepreneur was selling things that went on your ear, and that had cured her ME apparently. I mean, it's just snake oil, and why the
Mm,
BBC did that, I don't know. I've made an official complaint. The ME Association has
mm.
made an official complaint. But the
Does
reality
she
is,
have evidence?
well, no, not scientific. It was just completely, oh, I did this and I got better. But we're all looking
Oh,
for snake oil. They're preying on vulnerable people. But
mm.
I've tried all sorts of stupid things to get better. I mean, um, I was going to roll in the poop of an alpaca, but I couldn't find an alpaca. You know, someone told me that would cure me. I made that up, by the way.
Is there any scientific evidence for that, or was that just
No,
what
no,
somebody did once?
I just made it up because
All right.
what hasn't come
Oh,
out,
okay.
because we've been talking about my life, and I find it quite difficult to talk about and everything. But in reality, is I'm quite a humorous guy. Like, I'm quite a happy person,
Yeah,
sex, drugs, and rock
yeah.
and roll and all that without the drugs. Um, yeah, anyway, I read online you can get this like a tens machine type thing, and you clip it on your
Yeah.
ear and
Mm,
electrocute yourself, and it makes you better. So I should, I'm a scientist, engineer by trade. I
mm.
know that these should be properly tested, but I'm desperate to get better. So I bought this thing, put it on, and I spent the next 24 hours like in a fetal position, like racked with pain. So we will
Oh,
try anything. But last
yeah.
summer, I found yet another supplement. I mean, I've tried loads of them, and
Mm,
within about 3 or 4 days, I didn't feel as fatigued as I was, and I had more
mm,
clarity of thought. And
mm,
I thought there could be something in this, and I had these particular supplements. Top level sportsmen use to recover faster, and they are involved in the metabolism of your cells. So there was some medical evidence behind using these, and I did feel better. But with this illness, one thing we do know is you can't get better by, like, if I walk 100 steps today, I walk 101 tomorrow, and 100, that's called graded exercise, and that will make you
yeah.
worse. And I suffered for that.
Yeah.
But I started feeling better, and I thought, over, by that stage it was 3 years I'd had been diagnosed. So over 3 years I'd had ME, and your muscles they wither away to nothing. Like it's called muscle atrophy. Like have to have a cushion on the settee because my bum's not as big as it was, and my bum hurts. Like, I wish I
Yeah.
could do the same with my belly, but that hasn't happened. Um, so I thought,
You are humorous, see?
if this supplement is making me better, I can't exploit it because my body is so drained. Like, at least my mind was free, and I wrote the bulk of the Embleton murders after I went on the supplements. Um, and I'm
So
slowly
it helped in that regard, did it?
yeah, and I've slowly been able to walk further. And I have an app on my phone. It counts the steps, and
Yeah.
they are increasing. And I'm not. If I overdo it, that's bad for me. But I'm getting better. But it's not a panacea. If I work on my book for 2 or 3 hours, towards the end of the day, my memory is absolutely woeful, and
Yeah.
the following day I can't remember what I did on that previous evening or night. So I can't.
Yeah.
If I wrote every day, I would have to accept that I'm not going to remember having the evening with my partner and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's not made me back to where I was by any stretch, but it has made me better, and that's wonderful.
If there's any hope out there for other people with similar things, can I ask what that supplement is?
Uh, yeah, you can, and I'll tell you. But this isn't medical advice.
No, of
I don't
course
want to
not.
be seen
No,
to sell
absolutely not.
snake oil. And
No,
like
no.
you talked before, we don't know whether it's stress or it's trauma or
Yeah,
an infection. So
of course.
somebody's who might have this illness might be broken in a different way, possibly. We just don't know. But the supplement,
Yeah,
there's two
absolutely.
together, NADH, I don't know what it stands for, and
Yep.
CoQ10. And similarly, I've long since forgotten what they stand for because I
Yeah.
have trouble making memories since I got ME. Like, I can remember my previous life much more accurately than I can now.
Well, that's telling me uh, you've not lost your memory. You've lost access to your memory. So
That's right.
because you're remembering other parts of your life. So where the hippocampus can be affected, obviously through many different forms. If the mind's racing, our brains can be calm, and it's things like, and it's completely different to ME, but it's like when people with Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetes. I think it's classified as dementia. Diabetes type 3 now, and if you notice, I've known people to have Alzheimer's, and I've got friends who have got family who with Alzheimer's too, and they'll recall memories from when they were a child, or their grandchildren, or themselves, the ones who are suffering with the grandparents, and they'll remember memories. They'll have memories, so that's evidence that they're not losing their memory; they're losing access to their memory. Would you say that's the same for you then, do you think?
We don't know the truth of this, do we? We can only hypothesize. And I think that's one of the
No.
things. I think another thing is you make memories when you sleep well. And if you don't sleep well, you don't make the memories. And I
That's
already
right.
had insomnia, but my sleeping hasn't got any better since I got ME. And if I can't remember something after, say, 6 o'clock at night, I've got no chance of remembering it the next day.
Yeah. I think the sleep is the art that we've lost in the modern day with everything that we do with shift works, and what we do with social media and devices now. That blue light really affects our sleep. Not eating 3 hours before sleep can be a factor, lowering your body temperature. I'm reading this book by Matthew Walker of Why We Sleep. It's those type of things, and that's, I think, what we should be doing at primary schools as well, and teaching these kids how to sleep better. And we can make it fun for them. But you're absolutely spot on. We need to get a good night's sleep, and it's not so much always the length of sleep; it's the quality of sleep that we're getting. And even foods, sugar can affect that as well. That inflammatory.
Can I interrupt you if you don't mind, Andrew?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
my awareness is about chronic illnesses, but it's also
Mm,
about hidden disabilities. So,
yes.
I don't look ill. I look like
Yeah.
a 50-year-old overweight man who's losing his hair and going grey. And we've been doing this quite a while now, this
Yeah,
chat,
we
because
have.
we
Yeah.
started before off air, and I'm
Yeah.
experiencing quite a few symptoms now, and you can't see them. So I'm gonna describe some. So
Yeah. Please do. If you're
I'm
comfortable
having
doing that, please do.
real problems focusing on you on the screen, and
Mm.
the my color palette has gone wrong. Like I'm not seeing colors as they should be, um,
Hmm.
and it like almost like I've got a bit of a headache and a real dryness in my mouth. Maybe that's from talking, but like a bit of nauseous feeling, and you can't see any
Hmm.
of that, but it's
Yeah.
very real
Yeah.
for the individual. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bear, I don't want you to ruin the rest of your day at all. I don't want that to go to pot.
I'm
But I do
afraid
want to thank you.
that's
Oh,
already happened. I've done too much, but it's worth it because I want this
yeah.
to form part of my mission and getting the message out there.
Well, I can only say thank you, and I appreciate your time and your energy. And I know that's obviously been very evidently taken a toll on your emotional charge for probably for the rest of the day. But I think you're right. Everyone will be more aware of this. But you've not just taught everyone about ME, Bear. You've allowed a safe space for other people to open up. Not only that, you've shown people how you can come from through your many journeys in life, go and achieve many different things in life. It's not just about the ME today, it's about the journey that you led in your life growing up, and the way you chased your dream and you didn't follow the traditional paths of you must go to work. You chased what you wanted to do. Yes, unfortunately you went through different times of hardship, but which again highlights to other people they're not on their own. They also go through,
Yeah,
for example, workplace bullying in our scenarios.
yeah,
And it's okay to talk. It's okay to feel what you're feeling, but you're not on your own, and you've got to reach out for support. And let's get these personal development strategies into place so we can get back to our baseline of just feeling happy again. And I think true happiness isn't happy. I think happy isn't an emotion. People think happy is an emotion, but it forms three things, and I think that is understanding your what enjoyment is, and satisfaction, and meaning. And I think if you can have all of those three things, that defines happiness, right? And I think, mate, Bear, just thank you for reaching out and sharing your story. It's been fantastic getting to know you over the last week. I want to stay in touch with you and follow your journey, and I will get your books and put them on my shelves and be part of the collection. Thank you for reaching out. Just one final thing. If you've got a message for anybody out there, what would be your piece of advice to
Oh, I hadn't really
them?
thought about that, but I want to thank you for giving me the
Oh,
opportunity to do this. And
of course.
I like your mission, getting people to identify what's important in life. And it's not about money or possessions, it's about happiness and family and friends and everything like that. Yeah, so,
Connection and relationships. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Bear, there's your advice, mate. That's the advice you're going to give to people. And I appreciate you joining me on this journey. And as corny as it is, you've definitely led your own way in life. That is for sure. But thanks again, Bear. You take care, and thank you. And I hope everybody really gets involved with this episode and shares it and gets that message out, because there'll be somewhere along the line that you'll know somebody with ME, or someone with a similar story, or someone just wants to hear a good feel story that can help motivate them change their lives for the better. And guys, thank you so much once again. We'll see you next week on the next episode. From Bear and myself, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening and watching Leading Our Own Way. So we can stay together forever and share more incredible journeys, please subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss next week's episode and what that amazing guest has to offer to the world. Please support Leading Our Own Way, and we'll get you on next week's episode.